You know, we've all heard it. Maybe we've even said it ourselves, right? Oh, I'm totally fine on 5 hours of sleep, or I've just adapted to getting less. In our hustle culture, it's almost become this weird badge of honor. But what if that's all just a big lie? What if our own brains are tricking us into believing we're functioning when in reality we're operating at a tiny fraction of our true potential? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the science that pulls back the curtain on this great sleep deception. So let me ask you straight up. Do you really think you've managed to hack your biology and adapt to less sleep? So many of us believe we can. You just get used to that feeling of being a little bit tired all the time. But as we're about to find out, the hard science tells a completely different and honestly a pretty alarming story. See, the real issue isn't whether you feel adapted, it's whether you actually are. And it turns out your brain is a notoriously unreliable narrator in this story.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to understand the difference between two kinds of sleep loss. Over here on the left, we've got acute sleep loss. The classic all-nighter. And you know exactly how this feels. It is miserable. You're groggy, you can't think straight, and you are painfully aware that you are not at your best. But now look at the right side, chronic sleep restriction. This is the one that's way more common and way more sneaky. This is just getting, say, 6 hours a night, every single night. And this feels manageable. You might need an extra cup of coffee, sure, but you tell yourself, I'm fine. And that right there is the deception. The damage is hidden, but it's building up day after day, completely under the radar of your own awareness.
And that brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer: sleep debt. The best way to think about it is like a bank account. Every night, your body needs you to deposit about 8 hours of sleep. But when you only put in 6, you've created a 2-hour deficit. You do that for a few days, and suddenly your account is seriously overdrawn. And just like a financial debt, this sleep debt has some pretty severe consequences. So let's look at the science of what this overdrawn account is actually doing to your brain.
So here's the official definition. Sleep debt is the cumulative effect of the sleep you've missed out on. It's not about one rough night. It's the grand total you build up over days, weeks, even months. And as this debt gets bigger, so does the biological pressure to sleep. But here's the most important part. This debt directly leads to impaired performance. And this is key. Whether you consciously feel sleepy or not, it is a real, measurable biological state.
So how in the world do we know all this stuff? Well, a huge chunk of our understanding comes from this incredible, groundbreaking study. And the setup was beautifully simple. Researchers took a bunch of healthy adults and split them into 3 groups. For 2 weeks straight, one group got to have a luxurious 8 hours in bed. Another group got 6 hours, and a third, unlucky group was cut down to just 4 hours a night. And all the while, the scientists were measuring their cognitive performance every single day. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting, especially for the 6-hour group. The people who thought they were getting by. This chart shows their cognitive lapses, which are basically just moments where their brain checks out, little attention failures. So on day 1, you can see performance is fine, barely any lapses. But by day 7, whoa, there's a pretty noticeable jump. And then look at day 14. Their performance is absolutely tanked. It's severely degraded. That sleep debt was piling up, and their brains were becoming less and less stable, even though they probably didn't even realize it.
And right here, this is the most staggering finding from the entire study. After just 2 weeks of sleeping only 6 hours a night, which so many people think is normal, their level of cognitive impairment was the same as someone who had been kept awake for 2 full nights. Just let that sink in for a second. Getting 6 hours a night for 2 weeks is the same as pulling 2 all-nighters back-to-back. You would never get behind the wheel of a car after being awake for 48 hours, right? But people do it every single day on a 6-hour sleep schedule, thinking they're totally fine.
This quote from the researchers just says it all. It perfectly captures the great deception. The participants were, and this is the scientific term, markedly impaired. The performance had fallen off a cliff. But when you asked them, hey, how do you feel? They just said they felt moderately sleepy. Their own perception of how tired they were had become completely disconnected from their actual disastrous performance. Their brains were lying to them, whispering that everything was okay when it absolutely was not.
So up until now, we've really been zeroing in on the cognitive side of things, your focus, your attention. But the price of sleep debt, it isn't just paid by your brain. Oh no. That deficit actually creates a ripple effect throughout your entire body, messing with critical systems and creating this hidden toll on your long-term health. So let's explore that full body impact now.
Yeah, when you look at sleep-restricted people, the research reveals a whole catalog of problems. For instance, your stress hormone cortisol stays high when it should be dropping. Your body's ability to process sugar gets worse, which puts you at risk for metabolic problems. Your fight-or-flight system gets stuck in the on position, keeping you in a constant state of low-level stress. Even the release of growth hormone, which you need for your body to repair itself, gets all out of whack. And a huge one, your immune system gets weaker, leaving you way more likely to get sick. So you see, this is so much more than just feeling tired. It's a systemic breakdown.
Okay, so that was a lot of bad news, I know. The deception is real, the debt is expensive, and it hits both your mind and your body. But here is the good news. This is not a life sentence. You can pay back your sleep debt, you can restore your health, and you can reclaim that nightly recharge. It's not about some magic pill. It's about fundamentally changing the way you think about and approach sleep. Let's get into the actionable steps.
Step 1 is just knowing your target. How much sleep do you actually need? Now, it does vary a little bit from person to person, but these guidelines are a fantastic starting point. For most adults listening, the recommendation is 7 hours or more per night. And notice it doesn't say 5 to 7. It's a baseline, a minimum of 7 hours. And if you have a teenager, it's even more, at 8 to 10 hours. Just knowing your number is the crucial first step in making a real plan.
So, how do you actually get there? Well, it all comes down to what experts call sleep hygiene, and these 4 steps are really the pillars. First up, consistency is king. Your body's internal clock just loves routine. Second, create a buffer zone before bed, a little wind-down routine that tells your body, hey, it's time to power down. Third, your environment is huge. You got to treat your bedroom like a cave, cool, dark, and quiet. And finally, and this is a big one for a lot of us, that blue light from our screens is a powerful signal to the brain to stay awake. So unplugging for an hour before bed is probably one of the most powerful changes you can make, starting tonight. And as Dr. Brandon Peters points out in this quote, it isn't just about the number of hours you spend in bed. It's about the quality of those hours. And that's why those simple changes we just talked about, the schedule, the routine, the dark room, are so powerful. Because they improve both the quantity and the quality of your sleep, helping you get that deep, restorative rest your body and your brain are absolutely crying out for. So we're going to end on this question. We've been taught to see sleep as this inconvenient thing, something we have to do, something to be minimized so we can be more productive. But all the science we just looked at tells us the exact opposite is true. Sleep is the very foundation of our performance. It's a force multiplier for everything we do. So instead of asking, how little sleep can I get by on, maybe the real question we should be asking ourselves is this: what incredible things could I accomplish if I finally paid off my debt and allowed myself to be truly, fully rested?